Theodore Robert Bundy, also known as Ted, was born on November 24th, 1946. Today I'm going to be telling you just a little bit about his childhood, personal life, and wrongdoings. Ted was born to a lady named Eleanor Cowell. She was his mother, and she was in and out of his life, always trying to find a new man, and was never really there for him. He mostly lived with his grandparents, Eleanor and Samuel Cowell. Samuel was very abusive, and Ted didn't really like his home life. He knew that they weren't wealthy, and he was just abused all the time. This was pretty much Ted's trigger of why psychologists think that he became a serial killer in his later days. Another reason why psychologists think that Ted might have been triggered by women was because his mother never told him who his actual father was. Ted continued to grow up with his grandparents at home, and he eventually graduated high school in the year of 1965. After high school, he enrolled in college in 1966. He would later then drop out of college in 1968. In the year of 1969, although, he met Liz Cloffer. There, Liz and him would have this love story that you all hear about. The perfect picnics, the backyard barbecues, and she even had his daughter named Molly, who he would grow to be a stepfather figure to. He then re-enrolled in law school in the year 1970. Then he would eventually drop out of law school in the year 1974. In the year 1974, that was when all of his killings started, as we know of today. Approximately 12 murders were taken in the year of 1974. Liz, she could tell that Ted was in and out, and she saw sketches of the police that they put out, and she had this gut feeling that this isn't adding up, and so she eventually called the police, and she gave them Ted's name. Ted was later on arrested in Utah on the date of August 16th, 1975. He was pulled over, and the police officer found a ski mask, a crowbar, handcuffs, and etc. in the back seat of his car. Ted explained that he found the handcuffs in a dumpster and that the ski mask was just for a skiing trip. But it didn't add up because there had been killings around then, and the police officer had seen him traveling around the city. So Ted was arrested, and he was taken into trial. After that, he was later on then, he wasn't found guilty. But in February of 1976, he was on trial for kidnapping, where then he was then convicted of being guilty for assault and kidnapping. On June 1976, after he was guilty, he was sentenced to 1 to 5 years in prison, where then he was then transferred to Aspen, Colorado, to prison in 1977. He was then going on court as his own defense lawyer, and on the date of June 7th, 1977, he jumped from the courthouse window and escaped in Aspen, Colorado. He was on the loose for about a week until his capture. He then was taken to another prison, and then he escaped from the prison there also on the date of December 30th, 1977. And the more I research about this, they say it was because that Ted took advantage because that was around the time of the holidays and there wasn't as many guards there. 2 weeks later, he arrived in Florida because he was still escaped. That is when the Chi Omega murders took place on January 15th, 1978. A couple of days later, in the month of February, on the day of the 8th, Kimberly Leach, at the age of 12, was also murdered. Ted was then arrested and put on trial for the Chi Omega murders in Florida in the month of June in 1979. The hardcore evidence for this trial would be the bite mark on the buttocks of one of the victims. This evidence was really what put Ted away for good. Ted was sentenced to the death penalty by electric chair. On his death row, he confessed to 30 murders, and it is really, they predict that he killed a lot more women than he confessed to. Ted Bundy died at the age of 42 on January 24th, 1989. Ted will go down as really one of the most notorious serial killers in America today because he is very well known and he committed so many murders across such a short time spree. From the years of 1974 to 1978, we know of him killing 30 women, but we still think that it's a lot more. So this is why I think that Ted Bundy is going down as one of the most notorious serial killers in America.